everyone. So today I wanted to talk about something a little close to my heart, something that I haven't really talked about in a long time. And that's my postpartum depression journey. So if you don't know, I had my first child at the end, near the end of 2019. And my pregnancy went really well. I felt really happy. I was in the best mood of my life. I was in decently good health, but it was a high-risk pregnancy because of my epilepsy, and it was very uncomfortable. I didn't gain that much weight, so he was big, but I wasn't stretching, and it caused a lot of pain. So when finally he was born, I was excited for it to be over with. I was done living with the pain, and I was just over it. I can almost pinpoint exactly the moment where I knew that I would need help, which was when I felt them. I had a C-section because I have epilepsy, and a natural birth could send me into a seizure. So I had a C-section, and when they were operating and I felt them pull him out of me, which is an extremely messed up feeling you won't understand until you've been there, I suddenly felt different. It was like that exact moment that I suddenly felt different. And I can't really describe why. Everything just hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt nauseous. Nurses had to immediately go get those things for you to throw up into. And from that point, I started to struggle almost immediately. Like the second he was pulled out of my body, I had a really hard time bonding with my child. So when he was first born, I had gestational diabetes, and he had to be checked a lot for his blood sugar just in case he had it, but luckily he did not. But he was taken away from us a lot and stabbed and poked, and that sucked. And healing from my C-section sucked too. I pushed really, really hard for the first 3 weeks, and then the whole year after that I kept pushing really hard, to the point where I was making meals for my child, like homemade special meals for him for the first year of his life, packed with protein and packed with all the nutrients and everything, and it became an obsession for me. For me, it was a complete obsession. It was the thing that I felt I could control. If I could just make sure that he was eating healthily and that he was taken care of, because we did baby-led weaning, I felt like that was something a mother does, and I could do it. But I couldn't bond with my child. At the beginning, it was a lot easier. He would lay on me, he would sleep. It was very nice. But then things started to change, and I started to feel completely disconnected from my life. Now, some backstory here. I did not want to have a child. I've never really wanted to have a child. I've been afraid of baby dolls and dolls my entire life. And I just don't really like kids, which I know is whatever. Like, now I do, but when I was growing up, I was never like, let me babysit your kid. That never happened. And it still probably wouldn't happen, because I grew up really, really fast physically, so I didn't have much of a childhood, and so I found that I had no way to relate to children. I had simply no way to relate, and now I have a child of my own. So for the first little while, I was killing myself over doing it. He would only sleep on me. I was making all the meals, I was cleaning up, I was doing the heavy lifting before I was supposed to after my operation. I was doing all of this and keeping everything as controlled as possible for that moment. And then suddenly I just couldn't do it anymore. I had run dry of whatever I had left to give. It was gone. Now, what I want to stress about this is that I did not have, luckily, I did not have postpartum psychosis. With postpartum psychosis, you generally, you have visions that your child is going to be hurt or that you're going to hurt them. Not all the time, but that's a fairly common side effect of postpartum psychosis. And I did not have that. My problem was never with my child. My problem was with myself. I felt like I would never be the mother he deserved to have, no matter how hard I tried. I felt like I was going to fail him. How could I not? I come from a broken family where my mom was the breadwinner. She was not maternal. My father was the maternal figure, but he was abusive as well. So I never really learned how to be a paternal figure to anyone. And then all of a sudden I have a child. And that's because my husband wanted a child, and I didn't want to take that away from him, which I don't recommend to anyone else because it was a very trying time in our relationship and in our family dynamic. Now, the problem that I had was that I simply didn't feel like I deserved to be alive anymore. So, trigger warning, we're going to talk about some stuff having to do with self-harm. If you're not down with that, please just skip ahead. So my biggest problem was actually that I didn't feel I was good enough for him, and I never would be. I felt like a complete failure because from the moment he was born, I started failing. And how could you not feel like a failure after something like that? So then started my out of character self-harm. I have harmed in the past, but not to the extent that I was at this point. At this point, at my lowest, my husband was finding me on the bathroom floor, bleeding out a few times a week. And I was constantly having to go to the emerge, constantly in ambulances, constantly doing all the things to try to keep me alive. I would run away. I would do all of these things just because I felt like I wasn't good enough for my child. I simply wasn't. And it put a lot on my husband. Obviously, I couldn't control what was happening and everything, and I don't hold myself accountable for the way that I behaved then. I feel terrible about it, but at the same time, it wasn't me. It was something completely different. So for a period there, my husband thought for sure that he was going to lose me. And I thought for sure that he was going to lose me. I just figured that everyone would do better without me. And so I stopped. I stopped trying. I wanted out. I just wanted everything to end. I was sure that Jordan raising him was a better idea than me being around. And I can say that I haven't self-harmed in a very long time. And I haven't had feelings like that in a very long time. They do come fleetingly as intrusive thoughts. But other than that, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like I have to be here for my child, and I have to be here to love him and let him know that his mother loves him in any way that I can. And I must stress that because I became so distant for a period there as like self-preservation to keep myself alive, I had a great difficulty in bonding with my child. He was very much attached to my husband and still is. And then that was like a dig to the chest. So every time I would try to give him a hug, he would push me away. And I don't blame him because I was kind of missing for a bit of his life, which I feel terrible about. But at the end of the day, I'm still here and that's what matters. But then I would go downstairs and I would watch him give, you know, his dad a hug and a kiss, and I would get nothing, and he would reject me. And that was really, really hard to take. I luckily discovered weed, as it's legal in Canada. And being able to be I'm on antidepressants, I'm on anxiety pills, I'm on whatever, but then to be able to smoke a joint allows me to be less self-critical when I'm around my child and put me in more of